What do you at? It's Paul from Wicked Acorn. I hit the wrong button and I ended the stream. I was all ready to go and I was messing with the chat, moving the chat, and I hit the stop button. Oh well, live and learn, right? Here we are. What are we looking at today? It's the 17th of October, and we have some mystery photos to look at. They're, oh boy, what a nuisance. I had this all ready. That was our last mystery photo, and I'll show you the next mystery photo for Monday. Well, happy Friday, by the way. So I bet somebody knows where that one is. That one's probably pretty easy. I got my 2 cups of tea. I hope you love Cheadle. That one's gone. And now I got my Brew Crew mug. Available at wickedacorn.com. Uh, yeah, check it out. I'm not at the Sailmakers Market this Sunday because, along with hitting wrong buttons, I forgot to book it. So, yes, it's in Scotland, and that will be related to Monday's live stream. Can you get more specific, Asterix? It is the 17th of October, and on this day in history, in the 17th of October, Guglielmo. Yes, I know you do. I think it's orange, isn't it? Don't you have an orange bee, Asterix? In 1907, Guglielmo Marconi Company began the first commercial transatlantic wireless service with a station in Glace Bay, Nova Scotia, Canada, and another in Clifton, Ireland. This groundbreaking service was officially inaugurated on October 17th, 1907, marking a new era in long-distance communication by enabling commercial press and other messages to be sent wirelessly across the Atlantic. And yeah, it's a canal boat lift. It's the first uh, transatlantic wireless message was sent from Signal Hill in St. John's, Newfoundland, being the closest bit on the other side of the ocean. That's right. Googling is cheating, uh, at least in this case. Um, yeah, Marconi and his team uh, transmitted from Signal Hill in St. John's. And it's not called Signal Hill because of that. It was used for signaling ships centuries before Marconi came along. But yeah, that's where the first transatlantic wireless message was sent from St. John's at Cabot Tower. And it is Cape Race is where they picked up the Titanic SOS signal. Cape Race is not far away from St. John's. It's in Newfoundland. The Cape Race wireless station picked up the Titanic SOS. On this day in history in 1933, Albert Einstein arrived in the United States as a refugee from Nazi Germany, taking a position at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. He had been visiting the US in early 1933 when Hitler came to power, and fearing for his safety, decided not to return to Germany. Einstein renounced his German citizenship, and although he initially planned a temporary stay, he became an American citizen in 1940. There you go. This is a sad, interesting one. The Death Railway was completed on this day in 1943. The Burma Railway, built by Allied POWs and Asian laborers, is completed for use by the Japanese Army. 415 kilometers, 258 miles. That doesn't sound right. 415 kilometers is 258 miles? I guess so. Railroad built by the Empire of Japan during World War II to support its forces in the Burma campaign. The railway was completed this day in 1943. And of course, that was the bridge on the River Kwai. So they tried to stop it, but only so much a bunch of POWs can do. But they had to go, didn't they? This day in history in 1957, Jailhouse Rock. Fireworks already? Not bonfire night fireworks already, is it? Or is it Halloween fireworks? Oh well. Jailhouse Rock premiered on this day in 1957 in Memphis, Tennessee. And there was a couple of little notes of interest here. Presley did not attend the premiere. His co-star Judy Tyler was tragically killed in a car accident just 2 weeks after filming was completed. Devastated by her death, Elvis reportedly never watched the finished film. And that's the famous Jailhouse Rock scene. Great tune. I'm sure I've seen. It's a little too early for Bonfire. I don't know, man. Hello, Hoggle. Yeah, I don't know. You guys start Bonfire Night pretty early here. Another music first. On October 17th, 1962, the Beatles made their first live television debut on the local Granada television program People and Places, broadcast in the north and southwest of England, filmed here in Manchester. The performance took place in between the band's regular lunchtime and evening shows at Liverpool's Cavern Club. So, oh, poor dogs. Your dogs are cowering under the Christmas tree. Oh my. Yeah, the dogs don't like the fireworks. We had dogs growing up, and they wouldn't have been afraid of fireworks because they were all hunting dogs. So if you had a dog that was afraid of fireworks, he would be called gun shy, and a gun shy hunting dog is not much good. Um, the broadcast was live from Studio 4 at Granada TV Centre on Quay Street in Manchester. The band played their newly released debut single, Love Me Do, and a cover of Richard Barrett's Some Other Guy. They had 2 rehearsal sessions before the broadcast, which ran from 6:35 to 7 p.m. The broadcast was live performance and not recorded, so the footage does not exist. And on the same day, Love Me Do entered the UK single charts for the first time, landing at number 49. Coincidentally, on this day in history in 1963, in Beatle history, they recorded I Want to Hold Your Hand. Yeah, I don't think it would be their first performance. The Beatles would have played in Manchester, in Liverpool before in before playing here in Manchester. They played at the Casbah Club, Pete Best's mother's, uh, like a coffee bar. Still there. It's reopened recently. So in 1963, they recorded "I Want to Hold Your Hand" on this day. And in 1967 was Brian Epstein's funeral. So a lot of events on this day in Beatle history. And without this guy, there wouldn't be any Beatles. Chuck Berry's live recording of "My Ding-a-Ling" this day in history went to #1. His only #1 hit, would you believe? Chuck Berry's only #1 hit was that stupid song, "My Ding-a-Ling." And it reached #1 on the Hot 100 on this day in 1972. And it spent 2 weeks at the top, and this was the Rock and Roll Pioneers' first and only single to reach #1 in both the US and the UK. And is Baby with a Laser there? I don't see him in the chat, but I was listening to this earlier today. It's Jim Seals' birthday, 1941. American singer, songwriter, guitarist, and fiddler. Seals and Croft, "Summer Breeze." I don't know if you guys remember that one. He was born in Sydney, Texas. He died in 2022. I didn't know that. But I had this album, and Baby with a Laser, if you're watching this afterwards, uh, I had to listen to it today. I had this album right up until I left Canada and I sold my record collection. And so I listened to it again today. Their first performance here, right? Yes, of course. Um, and I remember this song. I love this song. Great song. But I listened to it today because the thing I remember most about that song, other than being a great song, and I love to listen to that song, "Summer Breeze," is it starts off with, 4 bars of just guitar, solo guitar. And then a little lead bit kicks in, and they punch in the lead. And when they punch in the lead, you can hear the tape hiss go up in the mix. And I can't hear it anymore. Either that or they've cleaned it up and removed the tape hiss from what's on YouTube nowadays. Anyway, happy birthday, Jim Seals, even though you're not here to celebrate it. So our mystery photo from the last live stream is this place. Now, this was just a random photo to represent beer, because we're going to look at a video about beer today. And it is, so when I was looking for a photo to just represent beer, I looked for the Rover's Return, and I came across this photo. I'm like, oh wow, that's neat. And I'll just show you what I found here. Quite interesting. This is a page called 100 Halls Around Manchester. This I didn't know. For those that don't know, I'm sure most people watching here tonight know the Rover's Return from Coronation Street. And I just typed that in as a random photo to stick in to represent beer, because we're going to watch a video about beer. And I came across this. So this is a page about different halls around Manchester. Withengrieve Hall, 1307 to 1958, Manchester. Now, I wasn't aware of this. Shude Hill was once on the outskirts of the small settlement of Manchester. It was on a gentle slope, dropping down to the Irwell, Withy Grove, a country lane surrounded by fields where Hanging Ditch met Withengrieve. I hope I'm saying that right, as it was known for the willow trees. There were a few cottages, and a little further up an inn, the Seven Stars. At the top of the hill where Shude Hill began was Withengrieve Hall. Manchester itself obtained a great deal of its water from the springs which rose here. By 1741, the area was becoming built up with houses stretching the entire length of the road. So we're talking early days there, 1741. So that photo is the Seven Stars. The Seven Stars obtained its first license in 1551. Before that time, anyone could sell ale providing they provided 2 beds and exhibited the sign of a hand outside their house. Some of Charles Stuart's soldiers slept there in 1745. On the 11th of December that year, John Hume of the inn was paid 5 shillings 6 pence, 27.5p for horses and expenses. So that was Withengrieve Hall. So I'll just jump ahead a bit here. This is more stuff about the hall itself. By the 19th century, Shude Hill was no longer the rural idyll of William Hume's time, and the hall disappeared. It is believed that part of the hall, or one of its outbuildings, became the Rovers' Return Inn. There are claims that this pub had its origins back in 1307. However, this is likely to represent the building of Withengrieve, notwithstanding the fact that, as we have seen, licenses came in much later. However, it goes without saying that the Rovers and the Seven Stars were 2 of the oldest hostelries in Manchester, and the Rovers was possibly the oldest building in Manchester. That said, the council had been trying to close the Rovers' Return from around 1909. The Hume charity sold it by auction in 1908. And that's the Rovers' Return in 1905. Traditional Manchester drunk walking away. So there's a copy of the sale by auction of the premises. The inn lost its license in 1923 and became an antique shop and bookshop. By 1946, the council had bought the old Wellington under threat of its wrecking ball as part of the redevelopment and Manchester plan. They succeeded in demolishing it in 1958, and it now lies somewhere under the Arndale Centre. And there it is, the oldest house in Manchester about to disappear forever. So we were talking about that the other night, the Shambles place that got moved. Woodhouse Park. I did a video many years ago with all the places that the Beatles played in Manchester. I don't recall. There's like a dozen or so different venues they played at in Greater Manchester. So that could be one of them, or that could be a new one. Someone said they played in Wythenshawe as well, but I've not found any evidence of that. But that's pretty interesting. So that's where the Rovers' Return comes from. It was the first pub, or the oldest pub in Manchester. And the what was the other name? The Seven Stars. So that was neat to find that. What was the other place? The Shambles place they were talking about there. They moved it. The old Wellington, is that the Shambles place? Or is this place they tore down. So that's pretty interesting. There were so many halls around this area. There's another photo there. You can see on the side there, what does it say? Oldest beer house in the city. Ye old rovers return. I mean, the show must go on, but didn't have to tear that down. Okay, so let's get to the reason for that photo, which is this day in history. This day in history. Is that the same place, I wonder? The Shambles, the Wellington? Certainly implied that it was torn down in that one. Maybe it was like more than one building. Um, yeah, maybe it was more than one building, the Shambles Square. I've heard of Tommy Ducks. I've heard people speak of it, but I don't remember it, of course. But I've heard people talk about it in history pages and whatnot. Okay, so why is this swirling? So, this day in history, the Great Beer Flood of London. Let's see if this is going to play.
Here, at the junction of Tottenham Court Road and Oxford Street, was what I think must be the strangest disaster in London's history. I speak of the Great Beer Flood. From 1764 to 1921, before there was a theatre here, this was the site of the Horseshoe Brewery. Beer was big business at the time. What was more, it was considered quite a respectable drink for the working man. Tea would start to overtake it in popularity in the early 19th century, as it became more affordable, but in the meantime, beer would do nicely. It was considered less detrimental than gin, and it was certainly safer than water. William Hogarth.
So, this is the Great Beer Flood of London. Jago Hazard is the name of the channel. And he was talking about gin. And what's that guy's name? Oh, God, I can't remember his name. Uh, anyway, I watched a documentary about gin, and I think he's a Scottish actor, was the presenter on it. And gin was, whoa, man, the effects that gin, hard alcohol gin, I guess gin was the cheap booze at the time. Like we're talking back, 1700s and whatnot. Really, really devastated families. You know, like really had a really lot of ill effect on society and families and whatnot. Uh, People were just drunk all the time. They say, because of water safety, and I'm sure there's truth in that. But yeah, horrible, horrible effects that gin had on the society back then. So I guess beer was a safe alternative. I mean, even kids drank beer back then, and beer was different back then. It was not as strong as beer we drink today.
Than gin, and it was certainly safer than water. William Hogarth extolled its virtues in his engraving Beer Street. The Horseshoe Brewery's particular speciality was porter. Porter is a dark beer originating in London, and in the early 19th century it was hugely popular, particularly with labourers. The name actually comes from its popularity with market porters. Brewers also liked it because you could produce a decent batch by only maturing a small amount, then mixing it into a larger quantity of less mature beer. The Horseshoe Brewery, owned by Mew & Co., was one of the largest producers, putting out over 100,000 barrels a year. I mention all this so you'll get some idea of how this disaster could have happened. To meet demand, the Horseshoe Brewery had a number of wooden vats on its roof, each holding thousands of barrels of porter. On the
So, yeah, beer and mead, and I guess anything with alcohol in it would be the drink of safety drink. And because, there was cholera and all kinds of nasty diseases. And I guess the alcohol made it safer to drink. And so, that being said, if people are drinking beer as refreshment, as in like what you drink all day instead of water and tea and whatever, uh, beer, the drink of choice, you don't go get a bottle of water, you go get beer. You can imagine how much beer was required to meet the needs of people that were drinking beer all day, every day. Millions of gallons.
vats on its roof, each holding thousands of barrels of porter. On the 17th of October 1814, a clerk, George Crick, reported that one of the iron bands around one of the vats had come loose. It wasn't considered a priority for repair. With the expansion and contraction of the wooden vats, such incidents were far from unknown, and they never had any consequences. The vats were sturdy and strong, or so everyone thought. An hour later, though, they would be proven wrong in spectacular fashion. Crick reported hearing a loud crash. The vat had burst. As it did so, the beer that came flooding out damaged a neighbouring vat as well as 4 smaller vats. The storeroom below rapidly filled with between 8 and 9,000 barrels worth of beer. It was too much for the building to take, and the rear wall literally exploded. A 15-foot tsunami surged down New Street, a short street behind, bringing with it the wreckage of the brewery. The force was enough to destroy 2 houses and damage 2 more. A child, Hannah Bamfield, was in one of the houses and was killed. Eleanor Cooper, a servant working at the Tavistock Arms, a nearby pub, died when a wall collapsed on top of her. One child, Sarah Bates, was drowned. In a particularly grim event, 5 mourners at a wake for a deceased infant were killed in the destruction of the second house. The area around New Street was a particularly poor and crowded slum. This was the St. Giles Rookery. Families living in basements and cellars were forced to flee as the beer poured into their homes. There are tales of locals unable to believe their luck, grabbing as much free beer as they could and drinking themselves to death. It's a darkly funny story, but I can't seem to find anything concrete on who was killed in this manner, or even how many. Actually, contemporary reports seem to indicate that, if anything, the behaviour of the locals was exemplary, assisting
There was a time when I would be too. My fondness for beer has waned. I really, really like beer. I'm really, really good at drinking beer. Uh, but I can't do one. I can't, there's no point in having one. If I buy a dozen beer, I don't stop till they're all gone. Uh, which I do from time to time. There's no point in having one for me. Uh, yeah, I would be out there with a bucket too, I guess. Yeah, scooping it up. But yeah, and he talks about it here. Like a lot of these places, of course, had cellars, what I would call a basement, and yeah, there were all kinds of people drowned in this madness.
Seemed to indicate that, if anything, the behaviour of the locals was exemplary, assisting with rescue efforts however they could. There was, however, a macabre postscript. The families of St. Giles were, in many cases, desperately poor, and some of the families of victims resorted to exhibiting the bodies of their loved ones to raise the funeral costs. In one case, the exhibit was so popular that the floor collapsed, dropping all present into the still flooded basement. The local watchman, too, turned a pretty penny by charging twopence to look at the wreckage of the brewery. The disaster was ruled an act of God, the brewery itself being found not liable for the destruction. In their defence, as I said earlier, damage to vats was fairly common, and Crick and his superiors had no reason to believe this incident would be any different. Nevertheless, from then on, breweries would be built with concrete vats to prevent.
Yeah, I don't drink much these days. The juice is not worth the squeeze, so to speak. I These 2 day hangovers are too much for me. Uh, but what a crazy story. And it's an act of God. The brewery was not held accountable. Hmm, I don't know.
From then on, breweries would be built with concrete vats to prevent such a disaster from ever happening again. The Horseshoe Brewery closed in 1921. By this time, the Rookery of St. Giles had been redeveloped and New Street no longer existed. Rumours persist that for years the smell of beer hung in the air. 200 years later, it's easy to look on this accident as something funny and quirky. I mean, drowning in beer. What a way to go. No wonder the story's been embellished with tales of drunken revelry. It's obviously missing from the real events. But I can't help but think that for the residents of New Street, it was no laughing matter. Hello all, I hope you enjoyed this video on one of London's more unusual disasters. If you did, then please do hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you again very soon. Cheerio.
So I come across his videos quite often when researching stuff. It's Jago Hazard, The Great Beer Flood of London. And I think he concentrates around London, a lot of his videos. Uh, like you would. Um, you guys say as you would. We say like you would. Like you would, there was a song, as a matter of fact, called Like He Would. Like He Would. Like He Would. And it was a recitation song about lobsters. And the recitation was recited by Joey Smallwood, the father of Confederation. He was the the premier of Newfoundland when we joined Canada, and he was premier for, oh God, 20, 30 years. Uh, he was the premier forever, uh, a long time, at least 30 years, and he did the recitation of this story, and the chorus would come in like you would. So we don't say as you would, we say like you would. Similar saying. Yeah, I like beer. I like beer a lot, but as I said, I can't drink to excess, and I can't not drink to excess. When I when I start, I don't stop until it's all gone, and often end up going to get more. Uh, there was another story very similar to this, and I think it was in Boston, and it was a molasses flood, if you can imagine that. Very similar story, and you can look it up. Just look up molasses flood. You'll probably find it. And I think it was in Boston or somewhere around there, Boston in America. And can you imagine that? A flood of molasses. Molasses is what you guys think of as treacle. We don't call it treacle, we call it molasses. And I did a video about treacle, and a lot of people were saying that molasses is a different thing here. It's like a thing it's an unrefined version of treacle, whereas to us it's the opposite. Molasses in North America is treacle. We don't use the word treacle, but it's very much the same thing. If I were to describe it, it might be a little more bitter than treacle, maybe. I don't know. I'm not a molasses treacle connoisseur, but yeah, they did. They recommend the Guinness to pregnant women. That's true. Uh, so there you go. You can check out Jago Hazard's channel. He does things about London, and of course, lots of London history affected all of us. And we'll get to our other screen. Don't think there was anything else we had to look at here tonight. It's Friday, and my daughter's coming home for the weekend, so I gotta go make supper. Now, there's a question for you. I saw a map the other day of different ways to divide up the UK, one of which is what you call the last meal of the day. The last meal of the day in my world is called supper. And, some call it tea, some call it dinner, some call it supper. And uh, supper is very close to Manchester. It's more south of here, but it's very close. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are people that call it supper here. Um, my wife calls it dinner. Her grandmother called it tea. So there's not a consensus as such. Whitbread trophy bitter. Yeah, that's the thing with me. When I do drink beer, I drink the cheapest beer available because none of them are my brand. None of them. So when I moved here and I would go pick up beer at the shop, it didn't matter which one it was because they're all not my brand of beer. So I would just buy the cheapest stuff, and that suited me fine. We're in a conversation about beer brands, are we? My favorite saying about beer was, you offer someone a beer, and they turn their nose up at it because it's not their brand. However, I have never met anyone who turned their nose up at not their brand at 4 o'clock in the morning. It didn't matter what brand it was at 4 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, there you have it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, I'm not at the Sailmakers Market Sunday. So, if you were hoping to come by and have a chat, we'll have to do it here. And if you wanted to purchase something, you can get it from the website, wickedacorn.com. So there you go. We'll see you Monday. Did I show you the photo one more last time? There's our Where Is It photo for Monday. Baby with the laser. I don't think you saw that, did you? You showed up late. And I was telling a story about, I'll retell it because you weren't here. It's Jim Seals' birthday today. Directing this to Baby with a Laser now. Jim Seals. Do you remember Seals and Croft? And Summer Breeze. Great tune. Fantastic tune. And I had this album, like when it came out. I didn't buy it when it came out, but my mother did. And great album. Fantastic album. Summer Breeze. Fantastic song. And I remember listening to it. And later, when I became involved in the music industry, when you listen to it, you can hear after that 4-bar intro, the 2-chord intro, you can hear the lead guitar punch in. The tape hiss goes, it just, you can hear it punch in. Anyway, I went to listen to it today to hear it because I remembered it so well, and I can't hear it anymore. So either I've lost those frequencies, which is not surprising, or they've cleaned it up, which is also not surprising. So if you, yeah, Summer Breeze, Seals and Croft they had one other minor hit tune. Uh, yeah, I can't hear it, but you can hear the tape hiss because, of course, it was recorded on tape. You can hear the tape hiss because it's punched in, what's called punched in. And either they've cleaned it up or I can't hear it anymore. Both are quite possible. Anyway, again, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for dropping by. And don't think there's anything else we need to talk about. It's Jim Seals' birthday, by the way. Jim Seals of Seals and Croft, born in 1941. He died in 2022, which I never heard about. But they were a great band. They didn't. They had one other charting hit, which I can't remember the name of right now. But there you go. All right, so we'll see you in the next one.